booties for black girl nerds.
Well, thank you for your time this morning. I still here moved me on a number of levels as a person who lives in the inner city. I live in Inglewood, California, and I've seen some of the effects of when missing children in the Black and Brown community are under investigated. So it's a topic that does not get nearly the attention that it should, and it's not a new phenomenon. When the project was first presented to you, what were your initial thoughts, reading over the script and how your character, it pretty much leads the family through this very painful time in their history?
Well, well, thank you for your compliments of our project. I think it's it's an awesome opportunity anytime, particularly an actor of color has the opportunity to play and advocate for a character with such strength and determination. So when I read the script initially, I immediately connected with Michael Watson. The circumstances were horrific. His available resources were minimal. And it kind of really, I'm very much connected to my grandparents and my great grandparents when they were living. And they passed on not too long ago. And oftentimes, all they had were their hands, and they made something out of nothing. So that was my sort of emotional end into Michael. And just being an American of color in America gave me all those things to play with internally. I just focused them on specific circumstances, of the script.
What the story in itself is painful, but even
Yes.
more painful is the circumstances around it, whether from the media perspective or from the police perspective, and what their true intentions are. As we learned throughout the course of the film, the police have placed this on the lowest of priorities of theirs
Right.
to investigate. But at the same time, you have a media person who has sort of inserted himself into what's happening. And although he means well, his actions adversely affect what's happening as well. What is the media's role in investigating, do you, in your opinion, with shedding light on these type of crimes? Because as we see with our reporter in the story, he even if he had the right intentions, he just didn't go about it the right way.
Absolutely. And I'm not in any shape, form, subject matter expert when it comes to media. But my understanding is it's really important that media entities diversify, so that when these type of stories come before them, there is a level of sensitivity to those respective communities. And as we in America diversify even more, particularly in the next 15, 20 years, I think it would be incumbent upon our larger and smaller and local media entities to do a better job at telling everyone's story, because this story of this African-American family happens all the time to all colors. I think I last read where although we are 13 or 14% of the population, 3/8 of children that go missing are of color. And, and how often do we hear about that? We still hear about polyclass. They do these large documentaries and keeps her little girls like her name in the news for very extended amounts of time. And so I think it would be incumbent upon us to ask why, and why not other children, is because it's my sense that in our communities we're expected to be shot, we're expected to disappear, we're expected to be violated in some way. So I think it's a larger paradigm shift that needs to happen, and frankly I'm really excited that I believe it is happening. This whole Black Lives Matter movement, it seems to be expanding beyond the issues with police brutality. and that our lives matter in totality, and not just as us as a people, but as a part of the human race. Threat to justice somewhere is a threat to justice everywhere, as my Morehouse brother, Dr. King, often said. And so I'm seeing the larger collective, kind of see that and start to embrace it. And I hope, back to your question, is that our media entities, and maybe we can advocate more, when a child becomes missing, all hands on deck.
Right.
All hands on deck. It's every, I was raised, and I'm sure you were, in the community where, everybody took care of everybody's kids. And if
Absolutely.
you went down to a certain corner and you put your foot off that, like that little street, my grandmother got a call from Miss Sproul,
That's right.
who had sight, and she was on the phone with my grandmother. There was a sense of community, and I really hope that maybe this film will help highlight that need, that we are a village as people of color, but we also are a village of the human race.
Absolutely. Yeah, a very important topic. As you
Absolutely.
said, very, very like my own childhood. There's a store across the street that my
Yeah.
brother and I were not supposed to be crossing the street going to, because
Yeah.
there was you weren't even worried about kidnapping. It was just more so about the traffic of this street.
Absolutely.
And of course, we don't listen. We go over there. My mom's getting a call from work from Miss Newman. I see your kids going across the street.
Right.
And that's the way it is. And that's something that happens to Michael's family when he's just trying to hand out a flyer. No one wants to even want to take the flyer. They don't want to look at it. No one wants to be involved. No one wants to do anything. How do we reconcile ourselves with that, with society, where there are a lot of instances? It's like there's so many extremes that are happening right now. Yeah, there's a paradigm shift, and I'm happy to see it, that more people are taking notice of the necessity and the mattering of Black lives. But then you have people who are over the top. Oh, they're over there having a barbecue. I'm going to call the police when they're not supposed to be doing it. Where's how do we reach the happy medium of reestablishing communities without just calling the police or calling authority for every little thing? Where do you think that happy medium is?
I think it starts with the individual. There are clearly a lot of issues with our police, how our communities are policed. So that's a whole other conversation that I'm glad is starting to happen, and we are looking at it from perspectives, and we're having conversations that we didn't have before. But back to your question, we have to start in our homes. We have to start locally. Our former President Obama often iterates the power of grassroots organizing. And I think that's where we really need to start, not being focused on those top ticket candidates, but the lower ticket candidates, and those who are being elected into our court system, who are responsible, who are putting our children into the system, or mitigating them from going, and maybe advocating for other means to rehabilitate them. I think that's where we start. Every time I see a cop on the street, I'm here in Harlem, New York, I make it a point, sir, ma'am, thank you for your service.
Right.
It has to start somewhere. And it's not as black and white as often the talking heads make it. There are a lot of really good people trying to do the right thing. And the noise of the systemic racism that we're facing, the noise of folks with other agendas who are working to keep us apart. We're in a time where it is really important that we all exercise discernment. And I say to my friends all the time, even when you're posting something or you're forwarding something you heard, be clear of who the source is,
right,
and make sure it's a part of the intent is to heal and bring folks together versus it being upheld.
Absolutely.
So it starts with us. It really does.
The landing of this film, of course, is timely with, as we've been discussing, our current social climate, political climate, all the things that are happening. is, I've seen some suggestions I've been looking at what people suggest online of how to bridge the gap between policing and communities and any type of togetherness. And I saw a suggestion that said something like, instead of like taking away income from police, maybe make part of their policing be that they have to volunteer in the community that they live in 1 day a week, still receive their full pay, but work within the communities, because so many officers don't live in the communities that they police. What type of activity would you like to see in the communities to help bridge that gap between police and communities? Like you said, you've mentioned you've gone out and you shake hands and you thank people for their service. What additional steps do you think could be taken to help bridge that gap?
I think, I believe communication is a very, very powerful thing. And I think we are in a time where we think we're communicating more effectively with the different platforms and the tweeting and the posting. But I think, at least from my perspective, we're not engaging in the ways we should. I recently heard, I think it was New York One the other morning, where there is this program that police officers were sponsoring a basketball tournament with a lot of young kids in a particular neighborhood here in New York City. It's thinking outside the box. It's looking at what has worked in the past, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and kind of, growing it from there, and just looking at and having a conversation with, particularly our officers of color, who do have a vested interest. Get their perspective, get those individuals in the room, facilitate a conversation, with because the police union, they have their agenda, which I feel has been destructive over time. I understand it has a place, but let's get all the other folks out the room and get the folks who are on the streets every day with the neighborhood, and really have a conversation, and not just talk, but really set some goals and some courses of action that are reachable, that everyone agrees to, and everyone follows up on, so that we are doing it again as a collective. We're approaching it as a collective, because we got a lot of problems.
Right.
We got a lot of problems, but I'm a believer that, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. And so that this is happening at this time for a reason, and we are the change we've been looking for. So I think that's a great way to start.
Absolutely. Shifting back to the film now, and just during the course of the disappearance of the young girl, and as the reporter tries to navigate in the places that the police haven't gone, he's gone out and talked to the community. As a white male, he's not met with the warmest reception, we shall say. But he has given some information, but it's faulty information. And then he's back and he gets some more information that's beneficial information. What is our responsibility amongst each other to support ourselves? Because faulty information led to the death of one of our fellow community members. But ultimately, I won't reveal what happens in the end, so people can watch the film for themselves. But, just with that whole, is it time to, what's the happy medium of that, of the stop snitching and sharing information or talking to people outside of the community? Where's the happy medium with something like that for those who live within the community who need the help of people from outside the community?
That's a really, really interesting question, and I'm probably going to get in a little trouble for this. But I'm a believer that, we talk about police accountability, but I think accountability goes both ways. Black Lives Matter, that discussion is important, that it goes both ways. My aunt once said, we put up with a lot of bad behavior in our community. And, so we need to start also taking inventory of what we can do better with and for ourselves as this village of color. I think and the whole I don't snitch. I get it. I get the roots of it. I understand the the schism between our community and the police, and it's very valid. Again, policing in America historically was not set up to serve. It was to police us, to keep us in a certain place. And when we did not, when we started to grow and prosper on our own, Tulsa, hello, the system that was in place removed it. So that schism has only been exacerbated over years, and then here we are in 2020. But I think if we want different, we have to start doing different. We have to start thinking differently, and kind of really re-examining what it means not to snitch. Okay, so we're not going to snitch. We're not going to give information to the police or whatever law enforcement entity is investigating a particular crime or situation. Okay, so they have limited resources, they have limited time. What is your expectation is going to happen from there? So if you want movement, if you want closure, if you want to find this child, we have to examine, where do we meet them? Mm-hmm. Where do we meet them? We gotta start doing it differently. It's not just one-sided. My grandfather often says, there's always two sides to a pancake, no matter how you cook it. And so I think it's at this stage, I hope that the voices of reason and can start having dialogue in ways we didn't before, and not assume it's up to someone else to do it. Anyone hearing, this particular discussion between us, I hope they say to themselves, okay, what can I do? Because I'm asking myself that question every day. What can I do better? Because at this juncture, all hands on deck, people, all hands on deck. And I think the movie Still Here really highlights where we are as a society in terms of our children, but it also highlights the dynamics that have persevered for so long in our country. So Still Here has a few different meanings. Mm-hmm. We're still here going through this. We're still here in this place. We look at footage from the 60s. We're still here. John Lewis, who I was very fortunate to have dinner when I was in college, he and his wife would invite me and a few poor kids over for Sunday dinner, and we would talk about these things, And his recent passing hit me hard, because it was a passing of a guard, so to speak, and our brother Chadwick, that's a whole nother subject, Oh. But it's I feel like God, the universe, is saying, all right, folks, this is the time. Let's get to it.
Absolutely. And lastly,
we should start wrapping up.
Oh, okay. And lastly, your beautiful cast, your fellow cast members who are surrounding with you. These are some wonderful conversations or wonderful acting performances that are steeped in emotion and just portraying the role of a distraught family who wants their child back. How did you all come together to unplug when shooting some of these emotionally riveting scenes, because they're just so steeped in pain and agony, like you can just feel it through the screen. Just really magnificent performances by everyone in the cast. How did you all unplug at the end of the day of shooting some of those really, really emotionally heavy scenes?
Well, in talking to my creative comrades, we all had different ways of disengaging, but we shot really quickly in about a month, and so it was a really short time. For me, I kind of stayed in it just a little bit, so that I'm preparing for the next day. With when you do these smaller budget independent films, you don't get a lot of takes. So you need to do your homework. And so when Vlad says action, you're on it. And for me, that was a somewhat terrifying experience, because this was my first film. I know how to build I know how to build a character. I know how to prep for a scene, but the medium of film was very new to me. But you have folks like Afton Williamson, who played my wife. I would just look up and bam, she was there. Okay, they say, all right, cut for the day. You know, she's packing up doing her thing, but she's a seasoned actress, you know. So we all had our different little quirks on, you know, how to, you know, keep going but stay present. You know, Jeremy Holm, who plays the racist detective, who was my angel on the set, you know, he was a goofball at times. He was always cracking jokes. So, you know, we had different ways to approach this, but absolutely, it was a phenomenal experience for all of us and left an impression on all of our souls, to be honest.
Well, I thank you so much for your time. This is a wonderful, wonderful film, a needed topic that doesn't get enough, you know, attention. Thank you for your time and your talent. And I look forward to sharing this with our BGN audience.
Thank you. And I just need you. I know we're cutting off here, but I got to say this. I got to shout out to you and Black Girl Nerds for your mission of amplifying Black girls, Black women, women of color voices. I'm a feminist. I grew up with strong Black women. Had it not been for them, I would not be here today. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak with you and say thank you for what you do every day.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Me as well. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Better shake your booties for Black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for Black girl nerds.